Hi, this is Ed Rising, and welcome to another episode of Ed's Pop-O-Matic Podcast, a retro pop culture podcast where everything retro beats the new when you keep it in your heart. And tonight we're going to talk about Paul McCartney because we're going to be celebrating his upcoming 83rd birthday. Paul's birthday is June 18th, and I have several guests on, and I may have a few additional ones coming on afterwards. But our guests tonight are Meagan Paese. She is she does a podcast called Meagan Rock and Roll Radio
A history of rock and roll, Ed.
and the history of rock and roll. And you can check out. The great thing about what you do, Megan, is that you do all these things from rock and roll from the 50s, 60s, all the way on up. And it's pretty interesting. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that. And we'll talk a little bit about your connection with Paul and your favorite songs and things like that.
Right.
And then we have a gentleman that is known around the internet as Mr. Broadstreet. So wink, wink, we have an idea as to what his favorites are. Mr. Edward Crawford. And so welcome, Ed. How are you doing?
Hey, doing good. Good to see you, Ed. Megan again. Good to see everybody. I know it's been a few months since the fest, but looking forward to this and sharing some of my stuff and maybe some of the guilty pleasures and deep cuts as well. So I'm totally
Super.
looking forward to this.
Sounds good. And of course, there's two words are better than one. So there you go. And we'll see how that goes tonight. And we have a couple of other people that may be popping in tonight. So we'll see how that goes. So Megan, why don't we start off with you? And if
Okay.
you could talk to us a little bit about how you put your podcast together and what kind of things that you want like to do with that and your favorites with Paul.
Okay. Well, I've been doing this radio podcast ever since in college at Lynn University, and it's a night radio, and it used to be live, and then till later I ended up doing in a recording studio, which is now a podcast. It's a lot of fun. We do music from way back when, 50s, 60s, 70s, couple of 80s. And when we do topics, like most of all, we do Beatle topics. Depends on which guests I had on the show. Depends
Mm-hmm.
on who comes in concerts. Depends on doing a tribute to somebody. Depends on anniversaries that's coming up.
Yeah.
Anything. So that's what I do. And today's show I did today is honoring Paul McCartney's 83rd birthday, which is coming up. And all I did is play songs from the Beatles to Wings and some to his solo years. So I play a couple of songs that was from the book I had with me, and it's kind of big. It's called The Lyrics, and it talks about the behind the scenes on one of his songs from 1956 until now. That's it. So
Now, in reading the book, which lyrics do you think what came out to you in looking at the book? What song struck you best?
oh, there's a lot of songs I like. I mean, let's see. Well, let me start off with the Beatles. Well, let's see. Well, with Beatles, well, I do like "Got to Get You Into My Life." I really like that really
That's a big
upbeat
favorite of
tune.
mine too.
Yep, I like that. And I like this song that Paul likes. He wrote this inspired on the Beach Boys' "God Only Knows," which is "Here, There, and Everywhere." And I find it's a
Mm,
really great tune. I mean, I like that. And I do like "The Fool on the Hill," "Penny Lane," that's mentioned in the book. I mean, any Beatles songs you like. And with Wings, the one I like the most is Jet because I thought it's the greatest song he ever done to rock on. I mean, it's hard to pick what favorite you like by Paul. And
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and Paul's been my favorite Beatle ever since I got into the Beatles.
Oh, that's great. Yes, he's been my favorite too, since I was a kid. Um, and Ed, again, we talk about Broad Street, but other than that area, what kind of music from Paul do you find to be the most fun to enjoy, or the most that
Oh,
speaks to you mostly?
yeah, it's interesting. I mean, okay, there's obviously the Beatles stuff, right, that we all know and love. Favorite song for me would be No More Lonely Nights, surprise,
Mm,
surprise. But I've got some other favorites too. Basically, I like Footprints. I think that's a really, really
Great
wonderful
song.
ballad. I think that's a very, very underrated, underplayed song.
Hmm.
I'm trying to think of what others. Junior's Farm, great rocking
Oh,
tune.
yes.
My favorites. Yes. Yes, definitely, definitely. This one, Flowers in the Dirt, that was the first tour I saw him on, my first
Hmm.
concert,
Me
July
too.
4th, 1990. So, that at that point, that turned me into a fanatic. Flowers in the Dirt, a whole bunch of stuff up from Back to the Egg,
Yeah.
um, you know, Getting Closer, just there's so many to name. There's really so much to pick and choose from.
Let's talk about Flowers from the Dirt for a minute. Um, Back in '89, last June of '89, when it was released, one of the FM radio stations was doing a promotional special on the album, and and they said they were playing the whole album, and it was really great. And nowadays they won't do that anymore. I don't know if they do it for any artist really, but it was so great because I remember I mean, I was what, 28 maybe at the time, and I remember being in my backyard pool and just lounging around hearing this radio program on and getting so excited about this new McCartney album, which I had no idea was coming out. And they played this one. And I heard the first couple of lines of the song, and I just was like in love. I just dove into the water like, oh my god, this is the greatest song ever. And my brother said, would you listen to the whole song first before you proclaim it to be the greatest thing he's ever written? But I just love the way the song builds up, and he goes right into it. Will you ever take me in your heart, look me in the eye, tell me that I do? I'm sorry, folks, for singing. I shouldn't be doing that. But anyway, it just has a great lead in, so I really enjoy it. Um, anyway, yeah. So yeah, Flowers and Dirt, big moment for me. I thought it was a really good, strong album, and I'm glad that he's made that. And Megan, you had mentioned "Fool on the Hill." "Fool on the
Yes.
Hill" is also one of my favorite Beatles songs,
Yes.
particularly from the Sgt. Pepper era. And let me ask both of you: are you aware of some of the criticism that Paul has received for "Fool on the Hill," rightly or wrongly, lyric-wise?
I'm not sure. I don't think so. But I read the whole song, how he wrote it. He wrote this song something to do about a fool, something inspired on the Maharishi. I think that's what it is about. And if you ever,
Yes, that
yeah,
would make sense.
that's right. And if you ever watched the TV film, which was a flop, Magical Mystery Tour, this video he did, like on the hill, that was filmed in France, somewhere called Nice, France. So
Yes.
that was on the hill. That's how he decided to do it for the song, The Fool on the Hill. And
Yeah.
speaking of the Flowers and Dirt, he did that tour from 1990 where he did sing Fool on the Hill on that
Yeah, he
concert.
did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was a highlight because I love the way that he was on some kind of a transport,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
it took him up above the audience, and right now was the coolest thing ever.
Yes. I
Yeah,
saw.
circling
Yeah.
around. Yeah, that's right. That's right. Oh God, yeah.
Yes, I saw that was a cool concert film they do. They play all the songs from Beatles to Wings and a couple of songs from Flowers in the Dirt. The one I
Yeah.
like in Flowers in the Dirt is Rough Ride. I thought it's one of the best songs Paul has did. So
It's kind of a bluesy song, right? So it's
kind of, yeah.
and another one of his sex songs, so
Yeah.
Hey, he's written some very interesting songs about sex, which is kind of funny, Press is another one,
Yes.
I Press is a great song, and no, how people don't get that, I don't understand, but it's uh but comparing it to Oklahoma, maybe I come up with something else, but
Yeah, I couldn't think of something else. One of my favorites from Flowers in the Dirt era, I really love is The First Stone. That's a great B-side that I think maybe should have been on the album proper.
I'm not really familiar with the song.
I'll have to send it to you, but it was written with him and Hamish Stewart, I think. They co-wrote it.
It was a B-side,
It was a B-side. Good rocking
so
song.
it will be on the 7-inch singles release that
Yeah.
the box set that came out a couple of years ago?
It would be, I think it would be, it was also just like one of the bonus CD tracks, I think.
Yeah, okay, I'm gonna have to look that up.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Sorry, went off on a
Um,
flower tangent there, but sorry, everybody.
that's all right. That's okay. Um, yeah. The funny thing also about today is that it's also the birthday for Brian Wilson, who we just lost the other day.
Yes, that's another
And
one. Yes.
Yeah.
so it was funny because when we were I was thinking about putting together a podcast for Paul. I pretty much do it every year for Paul, you know. And so I was like, well, maybe I'll skip it this year. There isn't anything really new happening at the moment. We don't know. He may tour, he may not tour. We don't know exactly what's going on. And so I figured, oh, I'll give it a break. But then, with news on Brian, um, I became a little more melancholy about it. Um, we have to really appreciate the fact that we have Paul and we have Ringo, who's, out there touring with his all-star band and doing great shows and looks fantastic.
Yes, he is.
Although I gotta know what the hell he's got going on because I mean, he looks completely different than he did maybe 10 years ago.
I know. Let us
So
sit on it, Ringo.
I don't know. Maybe he's using. I don't know if he's using Grecian formula or if he's been through all kinds of plastic surgery or whatever's going on, or hair pieces or whatever it is. But he looks good. He seems to have great energy. That's what I'm impressed with, his energy. 84 years old. He's out there. He's
Well,
rocking. He's doing stuff. Had a TV show a couple of months ago. TV special a couple of months ago.
Yeah,
yeah.
that's right.
Pretty
This past
amazing.
March, he did. It was at the Ryman Auditorium. He did in concert last January, and now it's a special since last March on
Yeah.
CBS. I thought it was
Yeah.
amazing what he did, and he did a good job putting this together on his album called Look Up. So yeah, and also this week, actually last week, Ringo is starting the tour. He just played in Connecticut. Played in Radio City, and now I
Yeah.
heard he's going to be in Florida, which I'm looking forward to see Ringo and the All Star Band.
Oh, that'd be great.
Yeah, I saw him many times since 2006, and he still puts on an amazing show. Depends on who is in the All Star. I mean, this year he got Steve Lukather from Toto. He has Colin Hay from Men at Black. He got Hamish Stewart coming. And then he got Warren Ham, and of course the drummer, who I had a great pleasure with, and we had him at Beatles on the Beach twice, Greg Bezinet. And
Bezinet, right?
What a great drummer! He's what a talented drummer. I mean, he would tell you everything about Ringo or why Ringo's his favorite drummer. He does everything. And then they got another guy playing the keyboards. I don't know what's his name, but he plays for Aerosmith. I think it's Buck Johnson who's going to be playing with Ringo and the All Star Band for the first time. So,
okay.
Yeah. So that's
did you say that Hamish Stewart is with him?
Yes, Hamish Stewart. He's been playing with Ringo a couple times. I remember seeing Hamish play with Ringo since 2008. And I only know the song he did with the Average White Band, which is Pick Up the Pieces.
Right.
Yeah.
And of course, he played with McCartney.
Yes.
On the Flowers of the Dirt tour and
and
next
Off the
Ground and the Off Ground tour after that. So yeah, and I thought that was a nice collaboration.
Yes.
I thought he had a good group there. Robbie Robertson, Hamish Stewart. They had two different drummers, and of course Linda and Paul Wickens, and they were a pretty darn good band. And
Yes.
I felt bad that did not continue, but Paul likes to move around, work with different people, and so forth over the years.
Yes, of course. Well, let's see. Paul is still out there. Let's see. There's the only thing I know he came out is let me think. He did a duo with Barbara Streisand just recently, which I heard. And now Paul is coming out with a new book in November. We know is on Wings.
Right.
And looking forward to it. So that should be a cool book to get, just like the lyrics or just like Eyes of the Storm of his photos from 63 to 64. And now Paul's going to come out soon on that cartoon about almost like
It's called High in the Clouds.
High in the Clouds.
Yeah.
That's it.
Right.
Finally get that, yeah.
So
So
that'd
yeah,
be interesting to see, yeah, sure.
yep, yeah.
Now,
So,
Ed, do you know if he wrote the High in the Clouds story, or if he's just providing music to it, or
As far as I know, and either of you can correct me if I'm wrong on this one. I think 2005 it was started, if I'm remembering correctly. Um, he did write it, and I've heard he's going to be playing the Walrus. And you know, if the Walrus is Paul.
he
yeah,
loves it.
I heard that too. Yes.
Yeah. But like a whole bunch of people like him, Ringo, Lionel Richie, Celine Dion, Jimmy Fallon. So I think it's gonna do
That's
pretty well. I
great.
think it's gonna be interesting to see. I'm still hoping for Broad Street too, though, and a
Me
retroactive
too.
release on VHS. But
Yeah,
I
me
might be
too.
getting
Me too.
greedy.
Me too. I personally I love, and we've talked about it before, but I'll talk about it again. Anytime you want to talk about it, happy to talk about it. Paul McCartney's Give My Regard to Broad Street. It may not be the greatest movie ever made by anyone, but I don't understand why it should have received so much criticism. It's roughly a 90-minute movie of Paul McCartney in virtually every scene of that movie. He sounds great, sings a lot of great songs, whether it's old Beatles songs or redone songs or a couple of new songs. Whether the songs were always the greatest songs or not, they were good. They were good songs. There was good production.
Yeah.
And he wasn't an actor, but he did a hell of a job playing Paul McCartney. I thought.
Yeah,
I was
of course.
convinced. I was convinced that
Me too.
looks like me like he's a rock star. That's what he's doing. And he was and he wasn't a flamboyant rock star or a guy that was careless. He was caring about the people that worked for him, and he was, he came across as a compassionate guy, and I liked that version of Paul McCartney, so I gravitated towards that movie, and I enjoyed him, and um, and so I wish it hadn't received such bad criticism. Um, Ed, is there something about the movie that you particularly like?
I mean, besides the normal Lonely Nights song, I love the warehouse sequence where they're just jamming together. Just Paul, Ringo, you get Chris Spedding and Dave Edmunds in there.
Yeah,
You get Eric Stewart also coming in for like the brief, kind of that brief number so bad. So that's probably my favorite. And I just love the scenery, everything, and I'm lucky enough to have visited England about 25 years ago, and it was just kind of cool to see, Tower Bridge, all that stuff. It's just a fun film,
and the cinematography was really good too.
Yeah.
I mean that scene the scene at the train station,
Yeah.
and you see all of London all lit up. That was really very cool.
Yes, of course. Well, let's see. There's a couple of scenes I like. I like the music from the movie. Like I like when Paul did the recording session during the medley yesterday, here, there, and everywhere, and Wanderlust. I thought that was really neat. He did, and then I like the scene when he did the ballroom dancing, like everyone's dance. I thought that was pretty neat as well. But the biggest song you can't go wrong with is No More Lonely Nights. And that was Paul's biggest hit from 1984. And that was a big hit. And here's something else I read. I was playing that song today on the podcast, and I found out David Gilmour is in the recording on the guitar. He played it at the end of that song. I mean, wow. That was very amazing what Gilmour did.
Yeah, it's a great talk, great solo.
That's right.
There's a real oomph to the song, a real something, Yeah.
That's right.
And now, of course, they have their own careers, but it would have been kind of cool if Dave Edmunds and David Gilmour had toured with Paul as part of his new band. But I don't know what occurred after that, and why they didn't continue to work, or again, like a lot of other times, Paul just kind of walked away and said, "Okay, well, I'm on to the next thing,"
No, and I'm looking forward to. I mean, I guess personally, I'm definitely looking forward to High in the Clouds and kind of seeing what songs he comes up with that, or what other, So the animation, I think it's going to be good too. I love good 2D animated film. I think.
I'm a big Disney fan, so I enjoy animation.
Well, I mean, ever since he did 20 years ago on Tropic Island Hum, Tuesday, and Rupert and the Frog Song, I mean, he did a good job doing those cartoons. But I like when he did Rupert. I mean, Rupert is just based on a comic cartoon he loves growing up. And then he decided to create it with the song he written. And with George Martin produced it with the King's Choir. It's called We All Stand Together. It was pretty neat how they did it with the frogs. It's like magic, you know? It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, that was neat. And Tropic Island Hum was interesting too. It's about a poor young squirrel was running away from the hunters, and then a frog named Froggo saved him on a hot air balloon and took him on a place of an island, I guess like a safe place for all these animals that were being treated different. Kind of
Yeah.
like the
Yeah.
animal
Yeah.
rights that Linda was in.
Yeah.
Right. Right. Right.
Yeah. And lastly was Tuesday. And the only thing it's about, it's just nothing. It's just based on a cartoon. Well, actually, a children's book based on it's like Tuesday night. It happened at 8 o'clock. And then those frogs didn't know what's happening. And then their leaf pods were flying across the sky every night until dawn. They just went back to the way it is. And they don't know what happened until a week later. It was Tuesday again, not just frogs flying, now pigs flying. And that was it. So Paul just did just the music, and that was it. That was it. So that's
Oh,
it.
when he did the Tropic Island Hum, and he
Yeah,
did the Rupert the Frog,
yeah,
it's also he likes to do a little acting when he can. He likes to get out there, do a little voice acting,
yes,
or play play in a film every once in a while. But he did a great job with those with the animated film. I
that's
really
right.
enjoyed that. Fred Velez is going to join us back.
Oh, good.
Just waiting for him to become alive. Here he comes
Hello,
back.
hi
Hey,
guys.
Fred. Fred's
Hey,
back.
Fred is back.
Hey, Fred.
Hi guys.
How you doing?
I'm doing okay. Sorry about that. Had a little issue.
So we are recording now.
Good.
Just so that you know that we're where we are at, and we were talking a little bit about um some of Paul's projects over the last couple of years. Megan was talking about the lyrics book and talking about songs like "Fool on the Hill" and "Tropic Island Hum" and the animated project that's coming up with "High in the Clouds." Things like that. We talked a little bit about Broad Street and about Flowers in the Dirt and
Oh,
that particular tour. Did you see Paul during the Flowers in the Dirt tour?
yeah, I did see the Flowers in the Dirt tour. I saw him in Madison Square Garden and got to see two shows there. And he was wonderful. He was great. It was his first shows at the Garden since the 1976 Wings Over America tour. And you mentioned Broad Street before. I just want to bring this to your attention. I
There you
think
go. That's the book.
Hey, good
I've
one,
shown this to you
Fred.
before. And what makes this nice is that I got it autographed by Paul and Linda.
Oh, that's very nice.
Yeah, this is
I'll
Nice.
I'll
this is
send you my
when
address later. I can borrow it. That's wonderful. That's absolutely
this
beautiful.
is
That is beautiful.
this is when he was promoting the Press to Play album, and someone had told me that he was going to be at this place to do an interview. So I rushed over there. There were very few fans there. So he arrived after the interview with Linda and the publicist. And since it was just a small group of people, they signed autographs, and Paul was nice, but he was all business. And Linda was sweet as anything. She was one of the nicest persons I ever met. And when I was getting her autograph, I asked her how the kids were, and she said, "Oh, they're doing great. Thank you for asking." So I think she was happy that someone was paying attention to her, since all the attention was obviously on Paul.
Sure.
So this is something I'll treasure for a long, long time. And I remember after I got the autograph and on the way home, it suddenly it hit me. I just met Paul McCartney, and I had to look.
Wow. Isn't it amazing? It doesn't hit you right away. And all of a sudden, wow. Now,
Yeah,
I believe there's a picture in there from one of my favorite scenes from that movie, which is the dream sequence
right.
in which they are at the Of course, he has various different daydreams during the course of this movie, in which the plot of the film is that he's stuck in a traffic jam and dreams that the master tapes of his that new album have disappeared, and whether it's the fault of someone that works for him or something else, they're out in the trail of trying to figure this out.
Right.
And there's a sequence in which Ringo and Linda, Barbara Beck, Paul, and I think it's the guy that was it Henry or Harry?
Something like that. Yeah,
Harry.
Harry.
Yeah.
And so they're all at a picnic and it's a very beautiful, like old English scenery scene. And the music is from the extended Eleanor Rigby called Eleanor Rigby's Dream.
Yeah.
And it's just gorgeous photography of this beautiful, beautiful lake scene that they have there. And it's just a joyful scene. They're having a nice little afternoon, and the weather starts to turn, and all of a sudden, Harry kicks their boat, and so they're going off, and they go over a waterfall, and it's presumed that Ringo, Barbara, and of course Linda are now gone, and now Paul is left to his own devices to carry on, and of course he's devastated. And that was filmed so beautifully. I was so touched. I was like, "Oh, this is so." I mean, it was so sad, but it was wonderful. And of
Yeah.
course, I got to remember this is only a dream, Ed, and
Well, it was a fantasy sequence.
yeah.
Yeah, and it was a fantasy sequence within a dream, so yeah, it was very interesting.
And then he
Uh,
has these visions of Linda coming back to him as a mirage,
right.
riding a horse, which of
That-
course
that's
she loved.
yeah.
As a ghost, yeah.
Yeah.
That was gorgeous.
As a
That was
ghost,
beautifully done.
yes.
So you talk about criticism that he received for that movie. There's a lot of beautiful things that came out of that film, and
Yeah.
it's a shame that it got such poor reviews.
Well, it was basically his version. It was sort of his magical mystery tour with a little mixture of a Hard Day's Night, but his version of Hard Day's Night. You
Yeah.
know, it pretty much had almost some of the same plot elements. And if I'll admit that the storyline was kind of weak, and which is probably why he got so much criticism on it. But as I recall, he approached George about it, and George advised him to get a good screenwriter to work on the script because you need a strong script in order to make the movie work.
Yeah,
And Paul said, "Okay, never mind," and he just did it on his own,
yeah,
and the movie turned out to be the way it was. The best thing about the movie are the music sequences. You
Yeah.
know, storyline's weak, but the music sequences are very good. Especially the rehearsal scenes with Dave Edmunds are
Mhm.
incredible.
yeah. Ed Crawford and I were just talking about that, and one of the other scenes that I find to be very enjoyable is the very awkward radio interview that he has to give.
Oh yeah.
And
Yes.
if you guys remember, and I'm listening to that and I'm watching that sometimes when I see it, and I can see this must be something Paul knew so well. Because Ed, Megan, can you talk a little bit about that scene, if you could?
I'm not sure, but it was true. Paul did an interview, but there's something else I was going to mention. Let's talk about the car Paul had used for the movie, because I interviewed a guy named Skip Batacchio, and he still has the car that Paul used to own for the movie.
That was a cool car.
Yes, it is a cool car. Yeah, I want to talk about that car.
Please.
Well, I don't know. The only thing I know is he used this car like every day, like every day during work, for the recording session, for the interview, anything. And then it shows in the beginning he was driving fast, heading to the studio or anything. So that's what I know about. And then I met a guy named Skip Batacchio. And Edward, I did told you about Skip. And and someone told me to check out Skip because Skip has now owned the car that was used for the movie. Give my regards on Broad Street, and that's the car. And Skip told me a lot of great stuff about the film. So that's all I know about the car. So
I'll
Yeah.
fill in. I'll film a little bit on that. 1955 Fort Poplar, only because I've seen this film so many times. It's kind of crazy. But also going into Fred, kind of the press to play. It's interesting. Also, now I'm kind of thinking about this. Like, okay, he did this big thing for Broad Street, lots of promotion stuff. You look at the press video. The press video, he's kind of more simple. Like, okay, I'm shooting it in the London Underground. You see him with his shirt and his kind of like mullet, kind of blowing in the wind type of thing.
Mhm.
It's just a very interesting kind of contrast too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And to me, that's one of my favorite videos that Paul or anybody has ever done. I mean, I'm sure it was all staged to a certain degree,
Mhm.
but I mean, and I know that for myself as someone who commuted every day by Long Island Railroad and then New York City subway every day. I get onto that subway sometimes, and in my head I'm going, even though I got the song on in my iPod or my Walkman or whatever I had at the time, but I'm going, darling, know that it wouldn't be a crime. Tell you that you love me all the time, and then wait for a girl to want to kiss me, and I'm like, hey, calm down, Ed. But
Mm.
I love that song. I love that video. Very creative, very fun and enjoyable. And again, didn't become a hit, and it just drives me up the wall. Fred, one of the things again, I'm sorry that you had to come late, but I'm glad that you're here. One of the things that we wanted to talk about was guilty pleasures that you may have. Talk about music from like favorites that you have, whether it's Beatles or it's solo career. And if you have a few that you want to share with us, that would be great.
Well, Broad Street is definitely a guilty pleasure. I would consider that because I do enjoy bits of the movie. Like I said, the songs stand out for me. Guilty pleasures, I don't even consider it a guilty pleasure for songs, but I always enjoyed from the Press to Play album, Pretty Little Head. I always thought it was a good,
Yes.
that's a very good song. And if you could find this, the McCartney years box set of his music videos,
Hmm.
it includes the music, the official music video for Pretty Little Head, which is a different music track. I think it was like the 12-inch version of the song that was used for the video,
Hmm.
and it's totally different from the one that's on Press to Play, but I
Yeah.
like it very much, and that's worth tracking down. If you go on YouTube, you could find the video for Pretty Little Head on there.
There is places on YouTube where you can actually find all the alternate versions for
Right.
Pretty Little Head. I mean, for Press to Play.
Mhm.
That should have been or could have been. That might have been a little bit more of a um, oh, what do you call it? A bit more adventurous album. And he was very adventurous, but this was might have be going a step away, maybe even a bit more of a harder sound.
Mhm.
That maybe he decided he wanted more of a pop version of those arrangements. And so that's why he released it the way he did. And I still think he did a great job. It's a good album. It's a very good album. I've grown to like it more so in recent years. Um, Initially, I was disappointed because it wasn't the success I was hoping for it to be, and so that kind of makes you feel a bit less about it. But I still think there's a lot of really good music on that album, and yeah,
Oh yeah.
Pretty Little Head is a favorite too. Any others you want to share, Fred?
Well, let's see. I do enjoy Electric Arguments. The one he did is the Fireman with Youth.
Yeah.
There's some really good songs on that, and the songs were so good they decided to let people in on the fact that hey, Paul McCartney is on this record too, you know, because previous Fireman albums didn't list who the artist was, but people in the know knew who it was.
Are
But
those albums more instrumental versions though?
I think there's some songs in there, but it's also a lot of his music that Paul did with Youth.
Yeah.
So Electric Arguments was the one that was the strongest. So they
Hmm.
let people in know in on in the know that Paul was on that record.
Yeah,
A couple other things that I like to show is this Paul live at the Cavern.
it's a
This
good
is
concert.
Oh yeah, this is a great concert, and it's not the actual original cavern. It's in the vicinity of the cavern, but still, this is an historic concert. And David Gilmour of Pink Floyd is on this is on in this concert too.
Hmm.
And then, of course, there's the Wingspan documentary.
Before you go any further, Fred, and then you said David Gilmour was with him at the Cavern show. Now, we were talking earlier about the band that he used for Broad Street. So he had Gilmour at the Cavern. Did he also have Dave Edmonds?
At the cavern, no, it was somebody else.
Okay.
Let me see if they list who the
Now,
other people.
Ed had Crawford had been over to England. No, when you were in England, did you get to see the new Cavern?
No, unfortunately, I only got to London. I didn't get to go to Liverpool, so I'm way overdue for a trip.
Yeah, yeah. Hey, one of these days you'll do it. Be
Uh,
cool.
Yeah,
I was supposed to go to London and Liverpool too, but I had to wait till hopefully next year. So I mean I went there 10 years ago, but I'm hoping to go back there again because I want to do that International Beatle Week and I want to do the tour that Charles Rosenay has done every year.
Yes.
Yeah.
mhm.
Yeah, I want to do that as well. And last year and this year, I've been slowed with a couple of issues that I've had to resolve. So I'm hoping next year is going to be the year I go to London and Liverpool, and maybe we can hang out.
I hope so too. So
No, that
yeah. All
Yeah,
right.
I got to go to Liverpool in the summer of 2001. So I did go to the Cavern, and that was great, and visit Matthew Street and the Liverpool Beatles Museum at
Yes.
the Albert Dock,
Yeah,
and that was wonderful. And did the Beatles Magical Mystery Tour bus tour of Liverpool, so I got to see Strawberry Fields,
oh, cool.
visited Penny Lane, saw the Empress, where near where Ringo lived,
Yeah,
uh, Brian Epstein's home, uh, Paul and Paul and John's childhood homes that were very close to each other,
yeah.
and George Harrison's home. So it was really a great trip, and I'm glad I did it.
Oh, yeah.
Uh,
I'm so glad you did too. Yeah,
mhm.
that's a once in a lifetime, or maybe more than once in a life.
Well,
To be able to see that.
if you can afford it, yeah. Um,
Sure.
just want to show this too. This is Paul. Good evening, New York City from the City Field show, which me and my wife Linda attended.
Oh,
This is the Best Buy version, which has the two CDs, the DVD, and an extra DVD of Paul from the David Letterman appearance, which I also saw because I lived in New York at the time, so I got to see Paul on the marquee of the David Letterman show, which was
Right. That was
the old
great.
Ed,
yeah.
the old Ed
The old Ed
Sullivan,
Sullivan Theater.
right?
That's a great mini concert. Yeah.
And one of the nice things about this collection, it comes with a little a little baseball card of Paul. Has his with his stats and everything, which is very
um,
cool.
yeah, that was a great show he did on the Ed Sullivan Theater. I loved that. And
Hmm.
then I was also at City Field.
Yeah,
I was in the left field, like field level seats, so I had a pretty good view of the center field area where Paul and the stage was.
right.
Still couldn't
Me and
see
Linda
him, but
was me, yeah, me and Linda was seated up in the stands on the right hand side. Uh,
yeah,
but one of the things I remember, and I took a picture of it, was someone on the opposite end of the field had dropped down a banner that said "Paul is all," like they did at the Shea Stadium
yeah,
show.
yeah.
So I
That's
thought that was
cool.
cool. That was very
Very
cool.
cool. My favorite moment from that concert is during Band on the Run. Actually, it was a bolt of lightning and thunder when he starts singing, "Will the rain explode with the mighty crash?" And it was like all of a
Whoa.
sudden, boom! I was like, "Oh, that's great." Yeah, pyrotechnics are great, but that was outstanding.
Wow.
You can't outdo God.
No, you can't outdo God, right?
See, Paul's so
Ah,
famous he can get God in his crew. That's pretty cool.
oh yeah, he's on his payroll, right? Very cool. All right. I just wanted to share a couple of my favorite guilty pleasures. I like a lot of the syrupy, fun songs that he does, although not all the time. I mean, I do like certain like "Ode to a Koala Bear" is a
Yeah.
real favorite of mine from um the 80s. I think it was a B-side to one of the Pipes of Peace singles.
Mm.
I think it might have been "Say Say Say" the back of "Say Say
I
Say."
think so, yeah.
But and I just think it's so much fun when he sings those kinds of songs, and it's hidden away, and yet it's such a good little song, and it gets buried away. Once Upon a Long Ago,
Hmm.
a lot of those songs from that era, I've really become big favorites of mine, and I would love to hear the Return to Pepperland stuff, all the stuff he did with who is the producer on Return to Pepperland? Who was that guy?
Bill
Re-
Ramone, I think.
Ramone, right? Phil Ramone. I'd love to
Wasn't
have
that
all that stuff come out.
wasn't that issued on one of the archival box sets?
From what I understand from the 7-inch disc singles, the 7-inch singles box set that came
Yeah.
out a couple years
I
ago,
think so.
there are some of those tracks, like "The Same Love" and "Love Come Tumbling Down" and um stuff like that
Hmm.
has been put out. But as far as I know, I mean, it has been released um as part of bonus tracks or whatever. But I would like to see an actual release of the album would be
Yep.
kind of cool, and I like to see Paul revisit some of these albums that maybe just didn't do quite so well, but have some really good songwriting on it, really good vocals and everything. And so we have to take what we have out there in Paul's archives. And Paul, God bless him, we love him so much.
Yes.
Just as I talked about with Brian Wilson a few days
Yeah.
ago.
Right.
I was so glad that Brian was able to get on tour in recent years and see
Hmm.
and feel the audience and the love that was reflected back to him. That I'd like Paul to be able to have a similar experience for music that isn't just the Beatles or just his #1 records with Wings and so forth, to be able to really understand that his audience, his core audience, people like us, you know, really enjoy more than just the the greatest hits.
Yeah.
We want to hear all the other stuff.
Right, exactly. If I could interject one other thing, my second close to Paul moment was when I was working at the New Amsterdam Theater when uh, Disney's Mary Poppins was playing there, and I was one of the ushers there, and there's a secret door at the back at the back of the audience where the celebrities come in, so they could be seated right away without anybody bothering them. So one day I was this was in 2012. I was working on the orchestra level, and I was near the secret door. And Mary Poppins had started the overture, everything. And I know there's a whole bunch of security guys who I know were heading towards the secret door. So, oh, somebody big is coming. So they start bringing the guy in. He comes up under one of the spotlights, not one of the overhead lights, excuse me. And I see it's Paul, and I'm going, stay professional, stay professional, stay professional. And they seated him down the aisle that I was working closest to. So um, during the intermission, they squirreled Paul away to an exit area that was closed off with some chairs there, so that he could rest over there without anybody bugging him. And as he's passing me by, I just give him a nod, and that's it, as he passes by me. And then later on, when the second act starts, they bring him out so he can get back to his seat. And the security guard I know, the head of security, Carl, he calls me over and says, "Fred, join me at this aisle. It's the aisle that Paul is sitting on." He says, "Just keep an eye on him. Make sure no one bothers him. That no one, whatever." So I'm put partly in charge of protecting Paul McCartney, and
Wow.
so that if I see anybody go near him, I just gently say, "Please return to your seat." And fortunately, nobody bothered him during that whole moment. So that was cool, And then after the show is finished, Paul went backstage to visit the cast of Mary Poppins, and I'm at the door where the audience is exiting, and a few of them come. "Was that Paul McCartney?" I said, "Yeah."
How cool.
So that was my moment. And the thing is, that same day was the day that Davy Jones was playing a concert at BB King's just across the street from us.
Right.
And I was hoping to attend that concert, but unfortunately, I wasn't able to. And unfortunately, that was the last
That was his last
concert.
concert, yeah.
That was the last concert he performed in New York City. The next day was his very last concert. And then, of
Okay.
course, we know that Davy died about 10 days
Yeah.
later.
Right.
So I saw Paul, and I could have seen Davy, but I found out from one of my coworkers, because I had gone to the locker rooms a little early, and one of my coworkers said, "Do you know Davy Jones just passed by our stage door?" I said, "What?" "Yeah, he was with two ladies who I assumed were his daughters, two of his daughters." So he had passed by our stage door. So if I'd
Could you
come a
imagine
little,
if he had come in, they would have sat him with Paul McCartney, and with Paul McCartney and Davy Jones to be protecting,
well, either that, or if I had come.
And meanwhile, you're burping out of your mind.
Well, then again, if I had come to work just a little bit later, I could have probably seen Davy.
Yeah.
So who knows?
Who knows?
Yeah.
That's a great story. I've
Mhm.
never gotten a chance to meet Paul. I had an opportunity for the 2005 tour. He was doing Radio City, and so my brother had a friend, and she was working for Paul in some capacity, and said to me, "Oh well, if you want to, you can come by where the limo is going to be, and you can say hello." And I thought to myself, you know what? He's going to be busy. He's going to be bombarded by a lot of people. It's not the easiest of times. And I really don't want to spoil how I feel about Paul McCartney if it turns into a negative thing. Not a negative thing, not meaning that Paul would be negative, just that, if it's all businesslike and he doesn't really pay attention to me, then I might take it personally. And I don't want that. So I kind of figured, let me avoid that, so I didn't go for that. Megan, have you ever met Paul or any of the Beatles?
To tell you the truth, no, I didn't. But I have met or interviewed people that had played or worked with Paul or Ringo. But I can share you how I saw Paul in concert at first. Well, first of all, I saw Paul since 2005 in concert. It was 20 years ago, and I have the program right here. And that's the US tour from 2005, and the same year when Paul came out with the album Chaos and Creation in the
Yep.
Backyard. And
Good album.
good album. The one I like is the Jenny Wren. I thought that's one of the best
That's real
acoustic
pretty.
sound. Yeah. I mean, that was the first concert I saw Paul in Miami, and he puts on an amazing show. I mean, not just the songs from Chaos and Creation. He sings all the songs from Beatles to Wings, songs that you might recognize. I mean, that was the best concert ever since I was 15. And then 5 years later, I saw him again, and it was also in Miami. That was the Sun Life Stadium, and another great show. A couple years later, I saw him again. it was the Amway in Orlando, another great concert. I mean, he puts on an amazing show. Then I saw him again in 2017, another good one. I mean, that was also as excellent. And then in 2022, when people starts to come back to play again, I saw him this time at the Hard Rock Hotel and Casino in Hollywood. And he got to play there at the Guitar Shape Hotel.
Wow.
His Got Back tour and another great concert. I mean, Paul's amazing. And and I have interviewed some people that did work with Paul. I mean, I had interviewed Lawrence Juber, who told me a lot of great stuff with Paul, of course, with Wings or how he met Paul McCartney. He told me great stuff. The one I like he told me about was Back to the Egg album, including with the Rockestra theme. And I thought that's amazing. So that's Lawrence Juber. Another person I interviewed a year ago, and he plays with Paul many times since 2002 and also comes out with his own music. Had a pleasure interviewing him one time is Brian Ray. And Brian would tell me everything about Paul McCartney, and not just Paul. He would talk about playing with Etta James. He talks about playing with Steven Tyler. He would talk about his own music and all the guitars he played. And then before we finish the interview, I say best for last is what's it like playing with Sir Paul? I mean, a lot of great stuff. And then I have people that tells me about Paul McCartney. That's all I know.
Yeah. Let me ask you, Megan, on your website, do you have links to some of these interviews that people can go back and listen to?
Yes, you can. Well, first you go on the website at www.thehistoryofrockandroll.net. And when you go to recorded shows, and you'll find all those shows that you can tune in, or you can hear all the past shows I've been doing, or the shows I've been doing today. So.
Excellent. Okay, and what we'll do when we get to the end, we'll ask everybody to give a little bit about themselves and contact and run through the contact information again for the website so that people can be prepared to look for that.
Oh, can I interject one
Fred,
last?
Please interject.
Yes, I shall.
He interjects so well.
Oh, I try. The last time I saw Paul in concert was in 2017 at the Prudential Center in Newark, New Jersey. And tickets were too expensive, so me and Linda just got tickets up in the boonies, all the way up in the top. So we got there very early, and we were sitting up there. It was very far from the stage, but close. We could still see everything. Then a guy from Prudential came up to us and said, "Hi, you guys, would you guys like to sit on the floor?" I said, "Oh, yes," because it seems they didn't sell enough tickets because the tickets were so expensive for the floor. So they gave us a couple of comp tickets, and here they are.
That's amazing.
We were sometimes Billy Joel does this too, where he'll have tickets set aside for real fans. He never sells the first couple of rows.
Yeah.
And he'll always give like the people in the cheapest seats the best seats, so we sat in row 20, me and Linda, in seats 3 and 4, and we even got a what is this? Oh, food and beverage comp voucher, which we never use, but still it's nice to have it. So
that's really very cool. It's a nice story, Fred.
Yeah, and the thing is, after this show, Linda says, "That's it. We're never going to see him again because we're never going to get as good as this."
What was the venue?
The Prudential Center in Newark, New Jersey.
Okay, cool. On the 2022 tour, I saw him in Orlando. I'm not sure if it was the Amway or I forget what it was called now, but whatever. It was a great show. And I went with my sister and my nephew and my nephew, my two, but they're both nephews. One is the husband of my niece. And that was a great experience to be there with my sister, who introduced me to the Beatles, and then her son and son-in-law, and it was pretty amazing. Great concert too,
I just want to add one last thing. That the date of the show was September 11th, 2017,
Oh,
and
wow.
he brought on some of the firemen and the policemen on stage for that concert
Yeah, yeah.
to commemorate
The
you know
event. Yeah. Whatever you want to
9/11.
call it. Whatever you call it. Not really an event, but yeah.
But he wanted to
Okay, it's
honor them.
tragedy. Yeah. But that's really nice. And Paul's very good with that kind of thing,
Hmm.
Yeah. All right, cool. And Ed, when did you see him last?
Funny enough, it's all kind of connected. My last first time, July 4th, 1990, 14 years old. That turned me into a total fanatic.
No.
Yeah, no, really, I know. Tell me more. The last time was actually 2005. I saw him on the 2005 tour. He came to Boston around October 27th or 28th, I think, at the
Hmm.
TD Garden. To piggyback a little bit on what Megan mentioned earlier, I've never gotten to meet him. I got to interview Lawrence as well for my channel, and he is so gracious and cool and kind.
Yeah.
And in 2023, if I don't have my phone with me right now, but I did get to see Denny Lane and got to meet him, get his autograph. So I've gotten sort of close, and that autograph is still my lock screen. You would think it'd
Yeah.
be one of the Paul ones I collect. I've never met him by this way, but I love that autograph, Fred. But
Yeah.
I collect the autographs. But it's just more touching with Denny. It was signed, in person. So kind of
Yeah. Yeah.
similar that it's near the Paul universe, within the Paul universe. Denny, I
Right,
didn't get
right,
the
right.
interview. I just, he signed and I was like, nervously shaking my pen. He had the pen out. He's like, afterwards. And he was so gracious. And then Lawrence, yeah, to make it to cover a couple things when I saw him at the 24 Fest, asked and beyond. I was surprised he did come on. I was very happily surprised, and he is
That's very nice.
nice as you say, as nice as people say he is. Megan, yeah,
Yeah.
he is totally awesome.
That's cool. I saw Denny Lane on 2023 at the City Winery in New York City. Was that where you saw him?
No, I saw him. It was in Cape Cod. It was at the not City Winery. That's in Boston. We have a City Winery in Boston too. Cape Cod. It was the Music Room in Cape Cod.
Okay.
Yeah.
And even though, I mean, again, we're talking months before he dies, but he was energetic. He was very nice with people signing autographs and so forth. He asked for requests. People were able to, like myself, I asked him to play was it not flying to my home. Oh God, I can't think of the name of the song now, but there's a song something called Flying. And anyway, so he did that, and it was a great moment. And Lawrence Juber, I met him in 2022, and like you said, it couldn't have been a nicer guy. Um, I was having lunch, one of those at the in at the fest, in the eating area there, and his wife sits down diagonally from me, and I figured he's going to be sitting next to me, so I didn't want to intrude on him.
Oh, well,
Uh,
I have one on Denny and Lawrence. Well, I saw Lawrence for the first time about 4 years ago, since 2021 at Abbey Road on the River, and a couple of times at Fest for Beatles fans at the TWA and Chicago. And he's magnificent. And I saw him again this year at Abbey Road on the River. And
yeah,
all he did is doing his guitar solos, and that was it. And then I'll be seeing him again next year with his
good.
band, and along with Peter Noon and the Cowsill. So that should be amazing. And for Denny Lane, I saw Denny played one of those Beatle tributes, like on the Sgt. Pepper one and on Revolver and Rubber Soul. I
Yeah,
thought that was great. And then the last time I saw him was in Boca Raton at Funky Biscuit, and that was another great show. Like you mentioned, you saw at the City Winery, Ed. He's like a great storyteller, tells stories from Moody Blues to Wings, songs he has written or songs. I mean, it's great. And the same thing. Got to meet him after the show. Got 3 Wings album autograph signed. Got a picture taken with him. And of course, I gave him my card if he wants to be guest on my show. And then I told him a little bit about Beatles on the Beach. But then sadly, he's gone, and
yeah,
I didn't get a chance to get him to come to Beatles on the Beach, or I didn't get a chance to get him to be guest on my show. So Lawrence has been on my podcast like 4 times now. And
yeah.
now I'm going to be working on getting Jeff Britton on my show hopefully next week. So that should be neat.
That's great,
Mm.
Megan. That's terrific
Yeah.
work.
Fingers crossed.
And something else, and since we're talking Paul McCartney, I have interviewed a couple of Paul McCartney tribute singers that are out there. Like there are some out there that I have interviewed, some to promote one of those Beatle events, like Beatles on the Beach we have here in Florida,
Right.
and at Abbey Road on the River, or at Fest for Beatles fans. But the person I have interviewed, you might know, is Tony Kishman with his Live and Let Die tribute. And
Yeah.
he puts on an amazing show, Tony. So that's one. Number two is Yuri George Poole. He does a show called McCartney Years, like a tribute to Wings of Wings Over America. What a great show. And another person I interviewed is Mitch Wiseman from Beatlemania. And if you look at him, he almost kind of looked like Paul. So those are a couple of Paul McCartney tributes I know. I mean, there's a lot of Paul McCartney tributes out there with the Beatles or Paul solos, you name it.
Yeah.
And speaking of Wings, I had interviewed Dan Ailey, who actually met Paul and Wings in Nashville back in '74. And he has some great stories, like knowing Denny Lane, meeting Paul, meeting Roy Orbison, of course, meeting Jeff Britton. I mean, Dan will tell you everything, and maybe he might be great to be on your show too.
Dan was on our show about
yeah,
a couple of years ago. We were doing a show on Wings, and I believe it was Nathan Liu is friendly with Dan, and he arranged for Dan to come on the show, and he told us a lot of his stories about meeting them during the course of the recording of the Juniors Farm and the Nashville sessions and so forth. So very cool.
So Dan's a great guy. I interviewed him 2 times on my show, and that's it. I know. That's all I know about Dan, and I found him on Facebook. So he's really a good guy.
Yeah, and Tony Kishman, I'd like to see him in concert. It hasn't really worked out for me in this particular area where I am to get to, but I've heard some of his stuff. There's a CD that a friend of mine has from his shows, and so he sounds really good. They do a good production.
Yes,
I think it's recorded with an orchestra. So
yes, of course.
So it's really good.
And you want to know something? When we had him at Beatles on the Beach last March, I got to play with him with the symphonic orchestra, and it was a lot of fun. And since you know, I do play violin. And
oh wow,
yeah, and also Ed, Fred, and Ed. If you guys ever come to Florida, you guys are welcome to check out Beatles on the Beach Festival, hopefully next year.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
You're very talented, Megan. We gotta get to know more about your music work.
Well, I'm just a radio host and a music historian and rock and roll guru. That's what I am.
You are.
So whammo.
Oh, very cool. Very cool. Whammo indeed. All right. So why don't we just kind of go around a little bit? Megan, why don't you start? Just give us your contact information, your website information again, and then we'll go to Ed, Crawford, and Fred, and myself at the end.
Okay, well, my show is called The History of Rock and Roll. The tune in is www.thehistoryofrockandroll.net, and all the great music you like to hear. Everything from the 50s, 60s, 70s, couple of 80s, with Beatles, Stones, Elvis, anything with birth of rock and roll, any artists you like to hear, promote concerts, tributes, anniversaries, and more. Thank you.
Okay, and Ed?
All right, well, yeah, call me Mr. Broadstreet. That's across all the social media platforms. So you can find me on YouTube. But I try to cover more stuff than Broadstreet as well, but Paul solo, sometimes, John, George and Ringo as well, solo, and some group stuff as well. But call me Mr. Broadstreet on YouTube and on TikTok and Instagram, and that's about it.
And you've had some really good interviews. I know you had a friend of mine that was on the podcast a few weeks ago, Sarah Schmidt, for her book "Do You Beatle People?"
Yeah,
and
I'm supposed to have.
Oh yeah, I know Sarah.
Yeah, we're all interconnected. So
we're all Beatle people, right?
Yes.
So
exactly.
Yeah, that was very cool. I was glad. I enjoyed that interview you did with them. And Fred?
Yep. Well, there's my 2 monkey books. My first one, A Little Bit Me, A Little Bit You, The Monkeys from a Fan's Perspective. And my most current book, A Little Bit Me, A Little Bit You 2, The Monkeys from International Fan Perspectives. You can get these books on Amazon.com as both print and Kindle editions. If you want to get autographed copies, you could try reaching me at freddypop.wordpress.com, my website, and you could reach me there. But if you just want to get the books on their own, you don't want them signed, that's okay. Again, you can get them both on Amazon in print and Kindle. And to reach me, you could reach me on Facebook, X, um, uh, what's the other one? And MeWe. So you can reach me there too. And on what's the I'm trying to think of the third one. Never mind. But you can reach me on those.
He's all over the place.
I'm all over the place. You can't.
And there's all kinds of people that have interviewed Fred, so check those out, and all his monkey stories, and it's great. And Fred, great guy. So it's good to have you on with us tonight. Thank you, Fred. And
You're welcome.
and lastly, okay, I'm sorry, Fred.
And if you're gonna do a Ringo birthday one next month, I'm going to save my Ringo stories for that.
Okay, well, we'll do something for Ringo, definitely.
Mhm.
Okay, and lastly, blessed, but and definitely least is me. My name is Ed Rising, and you can find me on Facebook. You can check out this podcast on Spotify and Apple Music and iHeart and other platforms like that. And you can also find the videos on YouTube. We have a YouTube page, and you can go to YouTube and just type in Ed Rising or Ed's Pop-O-Matic podcast, and magically they will appear. And we've been doing all kinds of interviews over the last couple of years, and we'll be doing a lot more over the next few months. A lot of things lined up, and hopefully a lot more wonderful guests like we have had tonight. So I want to thank my audience for listening and watching us, particularly the last couple of podcasts. The one that we did on Brian Wilson got some nice feedback on, and I appreciate that. And again, the fact that we lost Brian, and Brian's birthday also would be today. We are very, very, very appreciative that we have Paul here, and we love you, Paul, and we're glad that you are still rocking and still doing stuff and creating, and we're looking forward to whatever it is that you can share with us. So I want to thank my guests, Meagan Paese, Edward Crawford, and Fred Velez. Have a wonderful evening, and we'll see you soon. Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Thank you so much. Whammo.